Good morning. I'm going to give you, I think this is episode 3 about the cancer cottage, quote, not quote, slash healing hut. As I mentioned first, I'm going to be giving a lot of conversational descriptions of what I went through in building the cottage because I didn't have a camera in April when I started this whole project, and now I do. Now I'll catch up soon, and then we'll start doing more of a live inspection of what I'm actually doing. Now, you won't notice, maybe not, but I have on my grubbies today as I was planning on going out and spending a day working on the cottage. I didn't work on it yesterday for 2 reasons. It's very windy, and also I had 2 medical appointments. It just sort of messed up the day. It made it impossible. But this morning I was going to go out early and try to catch up on where I was. But my roofer showed up. I'm going to tell this story about roofing when I get to it, but I'd say in summary, I've been working on getting metal roofing put on the cottage for 2 months. And in the beginning, it was trying to track down roofers and get them to show up. And now we're into December, and the weather here can be very unforgiving. Like yesterday, they showed up but had to turn around and leave because the winds were 30, 40 miles an hour, and trying to be up on top of a building holding on big panels of metal roofing is not a good idea in that situation, so they turned around and left. But today, they may actually finish doing that. So last time I was talking about the whole project and how I got started and trying to find water and those things. Today I want to talk a little bit about the foundation, and forgive me if I'm redundant because I can't remember what I put in last time, but when I started this project in April, now before 2 years ago I wanted a contractor to do most of the work, and then I just didn't have the budget for that, and plus I think more work put on my shoulders would be benefit for me both in physical exercise, mental exercise, like being consumed with it. In other words, when your mind's consumed with something like this, it doesn't have space to be consumed with cancer and those issues. So that was a good thing. So in April, I had decided to have 2 contractors. I'm the general contractor, 2 subcontractors, one for foundation, including excavation and concrete, and one for the roofing. And, you know, again, I'm a novice at this. I've never been a general contractor before. Now, if you hear saws and hammers and things, that's roofers today. So in my, I guess, delusional idea is that when you have a contractor working, then your life is like a vacation. You can just sit back and relax and go out and do your own things on the cottage. But that has not been true. It is very stressful anytime I have other workers on the cottage for several reasons. One, if they need me, I don't have the stamina of a normal person due to my cancer. If I put in 3 hours a day, that's a hard day for me. Now, back in August, and I'll explain that when I go back and start doing videos again, I had to spend 6 to 8 or even 9 hours a day of hard work trying to get my part ready for some roofing panels. And that was exhausting. That went on for 4 or 5 weeks, and I got several injuries during that time. But like today, when I started to go out to work on the cottage and I saw the roofers were here, I said, nah, I'm not going out there. And the reason is, it started with the foundation people I'm going to talk about today. I got text or called probably every hour on the hour for days. Anytime there's a concrete worker here, excavator working here, and it'd always be, hey Mike, we have a problem. Come out here, we have a problem. Oh, I was so tired of hearing that. And I go out and spend an hour trying to solve this problem with excavating, with concrete. And so it's not like I thought, where the general contractor sits back and puts his feet up and watches those guys work. So anyway, today I said I'm not going out there because they'll start telling me about all the problems they ran into. And a lot of times they're just venting, but I'm tired of hearing their venting. You know, they did an estimate. They're professionals. They should be able to handle this. They don't need me, a novice, listening to all their venting and problems they run into and how I'm supposed to fix that. That's their expertise. Anyway, that's why I've decided to stay in the house today. Tomorrow I hope I can get back to working. So now the story about foundations. I mentioned before, in a moment of insanity, thought I would rent an excavator and do all the excavation myself, thinking I'd just dig a square hole and blah, 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 and that's it. Well, I am so glad I didn't do that. There is so much skill involved and knowledge that I did not have that it would have been a total disaster. Even with the good professional I had, we ran into problems. I mentioned before, he came out and started excavating and soon realized he ran into a problem, and it's hard to explain here, but it's got to do with the slope of the hill that we're on, that we had to make a choice. That's one of these phone calls. Come out here, Mike, we have a big problem. Once he started excavating, is that we had to either cut down all of our 3 acres to meet the level of the cottage, which sound insane to me, or build up the level of the cottage. So I chose to build up the level of the cottage. It took 14 large dump trucks of fill dirt to bring that up to that level, to the level that we needed. Otherwise, the problem is if the cottage is setting lower than the terrain, you got all this water running right into the cottage, and we get a lot of rain here in the Pacific Northwest, so that would have been a disaster. So anyway, I made the decision to bring in the dirt, which I still think is the right decision. However, that then led to a problem that the county inspector came out and said, you know what, I'm not going to approve all this dirt that you brought in. It has to have a civil engineer go over it. Now, the problem with that was the excavator guy also, I was going to say in cahoots, not cahoots, but he partnered with a concrete guy. And the concrete guy was getting married, and he said, if I don't pour concrete next week, it's going to be, he said, like September, 4 or 5 months later, which would have been really a disaster. Now, my disaster is, you got to put this in context, and I hate to play the cancer card, but I had to play it with the concrete guy. He said, well, you're retired, you're in no hurry. I said, my life is on a thin ice. I never know. It could be tomorrow that my cancer comes out of remission and I'll be in the hospital and be doing aggressive therapies and all this stuff. So I do have a timetable. I want to get this cottage built while I'm still on this earth. And I had to explain it to him that, it's not nonchalant. We'll do it in 6 months if we can't do it today. So I think he finally understood that. But I feel bad having to play my cancer card. I prefer they didn't even know that's why I'm doing this. But sometimes you have to. So anyway, so he got delayed. Now he did get married and go on his honeymoon and didn't pour concrete because time we brought in the 14 truckloads of dirt, we got that done in a few days. The county required civil engineering, so civil engineering had a schedule, 2 or 3 days later, come out. And if you're in building, these tests, and there's 2 tests that they do. One is a core sample and the other is taking dirt back to the lab and testing it. And looking at it and also testing its compression. So we did those things, and it was nervous. We passed the test by the skin of our teeth. The county guy came out, stamped everything. All right, you're ready to go. Now, and now my concrete guy is on his honeymoon in Hawaii or somewhere like that, Fiji, I don't know. So anyway, I had to sit around and wait for a week or two, and finally got the concrete guy hooked up again. So he came out, and I was going to stay out of the way and just watch him, and it's all of a sudden, there's things that I had to do. The engineer had all the bolt placements. You put anchor bolts in the concrete, in the footings, and they had a lot of bolts. And the concrete guy was mystified by that. But then the concrete guy kept calling me up there and saying, this makes no sense, this makes no sense. And he's got the drawings, this makes no sense. So I'm calling the architect, the engineer. I'm a low priority. I'm a little cottage. They're building apartment buildings and hospitals and stuff like that. And they, to get them to give me any attention, it takes 24, 48 hours to get any kind of feedback. And this was getting frustrating because, the concrete guy said, I can't do anything until I have the answer to this. Why is the architect designed it this way? So from what I've heard, people who do this all the time, is that this is typical. That the guys in the field and the architect and engineers back in the office sometimes have conflicts, and certainly I was in the middle of it. So finally, I get the architect on the phone. It's very hard to get him on the phone. And I get the concrete guy on the phone and said, you guys got to talk. Said, I can't run in between the two of you because I don't know, I don't know about architect design or engineering. So I let those 2 guys talk it out. And they came up to some resolutions. Now, one of the things, I don't want to go in details, but the architect had laid out these 2x8 mud seals on each end of the cottage, and the concrete guy said it made no sense. Well, it did make sense. We ended up leaving that. It's because when I stood up these giant walls, which I'll get to later, 20-foot walls that weighed probably 1,400 pounds by myself, having an 8-inch mud seal made a big difference. And I'll explain it later, but I was able to put hinges on that mud seal to help that wall go up without slipping. And I think that's what the architect was trying to say, me building this myself. But anyway, that's things we ran into. So I'm going to be showing some pictures. I mean, even right now, you might be looking at pictures rather than my face. Of the forms going up, and then we did it in, the beginning, they thought it would take 3 pours, a footing, a stem wall, and then the actual slab. But they were able to do it in 2 pours, which made it tricky because I am the plumber, and once the footings were in and before the stem walls could go in, I had to get all the plumbing in place, all the underground plumbing. So I've had some experience in plumbing. It's the thing I hate most. But you know, you have to be very, very careful because once these pipes are set in concrete, they're never moving. So I went out with my design, my architectural design, and spent a day or 2 marking exactly where everything went. You have to have a very exact grade in the pipe to drain it right. So I had it all set up, and when you're done with all these fittings and all these pipes, you have to do a water test, which is running a pipe 10 feet up in the air, filling up with water to the top, and then looking to see if there's any leaks. Now the problem with that, it was a day like today, very wet, rainy, so you couldn't see leaks. And the water was in the pipe, and I thought, hey, perfect. So I called the county guy. He came out, and before I even got out there, he said, you got a leak. And I said, and it was pouring down rain. I said, how do you know that? He said, your fill pipe, 10 feet, is empty. And I go, are you serious? Because the night before it was full. And sure enough, he was right. I had a leak, but I think I had, how many joints? Cemented joints. I think I had like 20 some. I had to go back and manually check each joint in this rain. So you put plastic over you. I put a towel papers under it, or newspapers, trying to catch a drip. And finally, I found the drip and cut out the pipe. There's like 5 or 6 joints in that section, redid them, put them back on, did my water test again. I left the water in there for days before I called the county guy, and he came back out and I passed. And then we could pour the stem walls, because the pipe goes through the stem wall. We could pour the stem wall, and also we are pumping concrete. I think I'm into this cottage building way over my head by now. No backing out. Slab for that. So I'll show you pictures of that. I'll be coming back. I'm trying to do this rather fast here until I get caught up. But that's where things were at, probably around beginning of May of 2023. Talk to you later.